And this bit of the Football Social and Excess Manchester is known as Forever Blue. I'm Ian Cheeseman, and I'm here every Tuesday evening between 6 and 7 to talk all things Manchester City. And I'm delighted to say, alongside me as ever, is the legend that is Paul Lake. And he's as blue as I am.
Good evening, Ian. I certainly am.
Good evening. You grew up as a Blue. You're a passion. You played for the club. You lived the dream. Don't get any better than that, does it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. And like I say, especially when you're a City fan and you've experienced some highs and some lows, but they don't get any higher than they are at the moment, in my opinion.
Absolutely not. Well, we're going to talk about that. We've got a couple of guests lined up for you as well. A little bit later on, we'll be talking to Dave Bennett, who played in the 1981 FA Cup final. You're shaking your head there.
No.
Particular memories of Dave Bennett?
No, yeah, I've got a lot of fun memories of Dave, and I spent some time with him when he was rehabbing at Lilleshall, so yeah. Yeah, and broke his leg at Coventry.
Yeah, he did. He played in that 87 Cup final, of course, didn't he? Yeah. And we've also got Nicky Weaver on the way a little bit later on. So we've got two former City players as well as Lakey and myself. And also there is a chance to win one of two pairs of tickets to tomorrow night's game between City and Basel. I'm going to give you the question a little bit later on. It will be text only. So we'll give you the text number a little later on as well, and it will be a question. I'm not going to tell you what the question is yet. I'll tell you in about 10 or 15 minutes from now. But you've got to be able to go to the game tomorrow, of course. You've got to be contactable tonight or tomorrow morning, and then you'll pick up your tickets at the game. And it's as simple as that, really. That's all to come. So let's start with City at the moment. And I went along to the game against Chelsea, I've got to say, on Sunday, and I can't tell you how much I enjoyed it. I thought the football was sensational, particularly some of the things that Leroy Sané did. I mean, the run at the the Chelsea defence where he beat about 5 men. It didn't end in a goal. Great run. There was that incident on the touchline right in front of where I was sat, where he did something that I can't even describe, and I wish I could, where he controlled this ball. I thought, there's no way he can emerge with the ball here, but he did. And there were other things, that the slick passing, the first time passing, I loved it. And yet, after the game, I talked to some City fans who said, boring game that. Chelsea just came and did nothing, which I can't argue with that, because they sort of didn't do anything. And we've seen the analysis on Sky, and people have seen the short clip of video where Chelsea stood like statues. But I think, and I wrote an article in the Evening News tonight saying City smothered the opposition, and that was why they did what they did. But I still enjoyed it. Tell me I'm not wrong, Lakey.
No, not at all. I mean, I actually equate it to something that I looked at as a form of psychological inertia, because if you think about it, you as a player playing against Manchester City, you get asked so many questions at every moment of every game, where you've got to be absolutely on it, and people lose sight of mental fatigue. It is as it's not as apparent as physical fatigue, but it's still ever present, especially in a game where you're going to be tested to the nth degree, and you come to the Etihad and with a team that are playing such wonderful football at such a high level as the champions. The pressure and responsibility, and plus the way that Conte set up meant that players were actually being asked to hone in on a role they're not particularly accustomed to. So they're having to really think and focus and concentrate, and not to move beyond a certain area. So you saw from the back line of a 5, it was a 5-4-1, almost a 5-5 at times with Hazard, which he is so unnatural for him. And the body language and there was with that responsibility came the fact that they were thinking, they were concentrating so much on they weren't allowed to almost express themselves. When they won the ball, they were in no position to be able to create any attacks. And what I found was fascinating was, okay, as a City fan, I love to see different tests. So whether teams play with a low press, medium press or a high press, and how they put pressure on our players and how our players deal with it. So, for instance, in the majority of the games this season, we've coped with whatever press, fundamentally, without changing our style of play whatsoever. And it's still been entertaining, exciting, different goals from all areas of the pitch. Against Liverpool at Anfield, historically we've always struggled there, and the intensity and the atmosphere and the press that Liverpool adopted really challenged City, and we made our own mistakes. We've made more mistakes this season that have cost goals than any other season, but because they've been so few, because they've been so dominant, it's quite apparent. But when you watch the game at the weekend, I was thinking, okay then, how are we going to find a way? And the subtleness of David Silva's movement something that I wanted to sort of speak about, Ian, because he was given man of the match by lots of people, but there's a reason behind that. If you looked at, if you were high up in the stadium at the weekend, you saw that there was about a 7-8 yard gap only between Fabregas and Drinkwater and their back five. So there wasn't really a pocket. It was almost sewn up, if you will. And yet David Silva managed to unpick that whenever he wanted to, still got sideways on and still created it time and time again. And even his movement for the goal, you know, that it's just being in the right place at the right time is not just that. There's a lot of thought behind David's movement. Very, very intelligent. And I look at different ways that we can use that intelligence to prize it open. Because whenever you talk about teams that come and try and defend against City, okay, it's difficult, bodies behind the ball, no space, etc. But we still managed to. Whereas with Pellegrini, we never really got beyond enough. We're still managing with Sterling, with obviously Sane, with Jesus, with Sergio's movement now, and Kevin De Bruyne, just stretching the pitch out. We are different in our dynamics and our tactics, so we are able to get beyond. But when teams do come like that and just defend, you know, it really does ask questions. But what also I loved about the weekend is, if City fans get to watch the game again, that expression, we rest with the ball, that's something that becomes more and more apparent. And there's a real intelligence behind that too, Ian, because all the time, those 4, 5, 6 yard passes, there was 962 or 64 passes at the beginning, almost 1,000 passes in one game, which is incredible. And a lot were not really going anywhere, but they were. They were asking questions because, you know, you get frustrated as a player. So if you're a world-class player like Eden Hazard, and you're not kicked the ball for 15 minutes, and the ball's 5 yards away, but they're passing it between each other, I'm going to try and nick that. At some point, I'm going to lose my rag and I'm going to try and nick it. And that's when the space is created behind you. And that's the intelligence of the football. It's about patience. It's about a mindset. And we also know that Pep got a real sense that the guys were taking the foot off the gas a little bit before the Chelsea game during the rest of the week. And he hammered the lads. He was right in their faces. You do not stop. This level cannot ever change. This is the level, and if you're not at it, you're going to be out. So regardless of being 16, 18, 15 points, whatever it's going to be in front of that particular time, he would not let the lads, you know, rest on their laurels at all. You're at it even more than ever. And when I tweeted about that little squeal that Pep had, that came out because that was the intensity that he's maintained for that week. And what a fantastic week for Manchester City and our fans. Truly unforgettable.
That bit of spiel there from Lakey we're going to release on a CD. This is worth listening to again, I would suggest. Tell anybody that's not just listened to that, or even if they have listened to it, download the podcast later on and just listen to the glorious description of Paul Lake on that, because I couldn't have put it any better myself, and you analysed it. So it certainly wasn't. I mean, I can understand that if you're a Chelsea fan, and I can understand if you're sitting somewhere in your lounge, you're not particularly bothered about City or Chelsea, that you would get frustrated because it appeared that Chelsea didn't put an awful lot of effort in. And I might be able to understand and buy into that a little bit because, you know, there does seem to be problems at Chelsea with Conte, and there was some suggesting he'd down tools. But I still maintain that the plan that Pep has brought to the club and is now, you can see it now actually unfolding in front of your eyes, which is this total domination and smothering of the opposition, is now working so well that occasionally there can be a game that is perceived as poor if you're a neutral, and if you want if you want it to be 4-3 and you don't care which way it goes, you're disappointed. Yeah. But City are executing the plan perfectly, aren't they?
They are. And again, Ian, I mean, to add to that, it's got to be about taking your chances. So for all of City's dominance, and they absolutely smothered, like you say, it was oppressive, wasn't it? You know, it was almost defensive against an attack.
Oppressive.
It was, and it was relentless at the weekend. But having said all that, if Moses takes his chance, it's 1-1, then all of a sudden, are the papers saying, masterstroke by Conte?
Correct.
And it's one goal. So for all of City's dominance and play, it's about finishing. And that's got to be, the end result has got to be, you've got to convert that dominance. And we have done it for the majority of the season. But, you know, again, that's something that there's been a lot of pressure on Sergio to be the lone striker and to be goals elsewhere. Jesus is coming back now, which is great. And obviously next season there's going to be a different dynamic and there'll be so many more options again. But, you know, all said and done, that's still that finite moment of one goal to concede, and all of a sudden it's 1-1, and then all of the conversation will still be, yeah, it was a poor approach, yes, it was defensive-minded, but if they nicked a goal and got a draw at the Etihad with a team playing so well, then you can argue, actually, he set up perfectly.
I was at the press conference today and Pep said that he felt him and his team learnt a lot from Chelsea's approach to the game, and that might be something they have to deal with in the latter stages of the Champions League, which I think is spot on. He also, and I know you mentioned it to me before when we were having a cup of tea, that Zinchenko was exposed a little bit now and again at left back, and that might be an area opponents look at, even though he had a lot of touches and we saw the statistics, and actually his football was very good.
Yeah.
But he also more or less admitted, Pep, in the press conference, that Zinchenko's challenge that resulted in a yellow, he didn't say it was a red. He described it as an orange. We know what he means by that, don't we? Because I must admit, last thing I would have wanted to do was see Zinchenko sent off, and he didn't make contact, and that's probably why he got away with it. But that was dangerous and reckless, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And again, that inexperience will come. It's like we're saying around certain moments. I'm not going to dig Fabian Delph out because he's been fantastic this season. He's gone above and beyond everyone's expectations. The challenge against Wigan was one that he didn't need to make, and he's not 19, 20-year-old. Whereas Zinchenko's a young lad, a bit like Phil Foden, makes that kind of a challenge where, it's at the halfway line there. So stand up, stay on your feet. He did it once in the second half as well. And he played ever so well, like you say. He did do very, very well. But these are things that he will have to learn from quickly. But you're right, Ian, in terms of if anyone talks about, a potential weakness, it's anyone, with pace, getting at Zinchenko, Fabian Delph, or Danilo on the right-hand side, potentially, has been a concern. And because of how City, like you say, because of the amount of possession, they actually dominate it, that they're only going to get exposed on a 1v1 on very, very rare occasion. You hope that they're going to be able to deal with it. But again, once we get Mendy back, you're going to have pace with Kyle Walker and Mendy, and you'll still rotate it. They'll still play, so it'll still be Fabian Delph, still be Zinchenko potentially, and other players playing on the right-hand side. But, when all's said and done, you still got to be able to defend, and that's something that will be a concern if, like you say, teams are going to be defensive-minded, are going to keep the ball better than Chelsea did, are going to be more robust, as a defensive unit, but I've got that pace to be able to exploit. So your Bayern Munichs and your Real Madrids and Barcelona, etc. That's going to be a different test. And City won't have as much possession. But all the time, what's great is that everyone's learning. The learning environment that Pep Guardiola has created is unprecedented. And for every single player to go up a notch in terms of where they think they could possibly have been at is testament to, has got to be one of the greatest coaches of all time.
I can't stand the fact that people are sort of saying that this is the weakest Premier League there's been for years, just because City have gone running off with it. But then they've got an unprecedented number of points here, don't forget that as well. And so what we're saying, there's 5 English clubs in the last 16 of the Champions League, and this is the weakest Premier League for years. Well, that's rubbish, isn't it? Yeah. I know City have still got the big test to come against either Paris Saint-Germain, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, that sort of opposition, maybe even arguably against Liverpool or United in the quarter-finals.
You're right.
But at the moment, how can you criticise what is going on? And you can't say it's because everybody else is poor. I still say it's because City are making other teams look poor in the games that City are playing in.
Absolutely, and again, you've got too many well-respected, established former players, pundits, commentators, in the print media, everywhere around, people saying that this is the best football we've ever seen in the Premier League. But it's not just about what they do with the ball, the angles created, the passes, the movement, the goals scored. It's about out of possession, which is a different entity.
Absolutely.
And that's something that still doesn't get talked about enough because of the intelligence and the selflessness of each player.
The hunting down of the play. They do it in threes and fours. It was illustrated in Match of the Day, to be fair, and I think Alan Shearer made a point of it, and I tweeted at the time, he's nailed it there. But that is the secret almost to this, isn't it?
It is. And it's that will, that desire to want to do it, and seen as equally as important. If I'm a team, if I'm playing Manchester City, and I'm on this pitch, and I'm part of a team, that is one of my main roles. Yeah, so you've got Pep will be, to the nth degree, it'll be forensic, the role that each player will have on the pitch, different angles receiving the ball, options onto the movement, you know, and then but out of possession in these key pocket areas, that's your responsibility. And it's highlighted when you see Sane and Sterling and Sergio are working back and Tyler's, and actually Sergio's been kind of levelled at not doing it quite as much as other players. There was one game this season, I'm not sure which game it was, and Sergio came off and Jesus came on, and he changed the game because of his out of possession work rate. And he changed the game just by doing that. So there's different entities and elements to City's play, which has culminated in making the perfect storm for Manchester City fans and for our team, but it's been a nightmare for everybody else.
And yet the other week, Sergio scored 4 goals, and quite rightly and understandably he was man of the match.
Yeah.
I actually thought his performance against Chelsea on Sunday was better. He didn't score, but boy, did he cover some ground. Boy, did he put some work rate in. And he was instrumental in setting up the goal that Bernardo Silva scored.
He was. And again, against Arsenal at the Emirates, you know, on Thursday night, you know, again, that selflessness, you know, looking for passes, looking to bring other players into play, you know, using his body, being aggressive, you know, running into areas where he knows he's not going to get the ball, but he's taking a player with him, just creating that space. That's the intelligence of our players, you know, and that's something that he's recognised and he's worked on. And each player is still striving to be better, and that's something else, that the humility in the environment. I can always be better. It's always about the team. And when you saw Bernardo Silva and David Silva speaking about each other after the game, that was a lovely piece, and the respect that they've got for each other, you know, and the amount of that Bernardo can learn from David Silva, the players that can learn from our experienced footballers, it's just second to none. So it's got everything really at this moment in time, you know, in terms of total football that everyone wants to watch. It's not dominating teams because you just physically dominate and oppress like Chelsea have done in the past. Well, although more recently they have been successful and played some great stuff. Let's have it right. But this season, it's been in the way that everyone said could not be done in the Premier League. So you tell Pep Guardiola he can't do something, and he's going to prove you wrong.